Hi, I'm Allison Tandry of DIY Salvation here to demonstrate how to do the first set of TROM exercises. No previous knowledge of this subject is necessary for the understanding and application of these instructions. So, what is the first exercise one does in TROM? It's a process of creating things around you. You don't create actual objects. You put them there with your creative force as a being. Or in simpler terms, you could say you imagine them. You could call it a visualization exercise. It doesn't matter what way you wish to understand it, as long as you know that's what you do. You place mental creations surrounding you over and over again, then do the same thing, but while considering that someone else is putting them there, then going back and forth between those two activities until you are 100% comfortable doing it. I'll start with the theory behind the exercise, then follow it up with more precise instructions. When an upset or conflict occurs in life, it forms a mental mass. A mental mass is just a tiny amount of substance in your mind. The mental mass is of importance to the being. Dennis Stevens came up with a method of handling these so-called importances called time breaking. It's the main technique used in TROM therapy. You take one of these mental masses from the past, whether it be an object, person or event, and view it simultaneously with the present. By viewing the past and present simultaneously, you break the illusion of time, thus the term time breaking. Time breaking can reduce or vanish the importance of these mental masses in your mind. The simplest form of time breaking is on level 2, where you view an object from the past next to an object in your present and compare the two. In comparing the object from your past to an object in the present, you diminish the mental mass. To give you an example, let's say you were threatened with a knife at one point in your life. If you were to compare the knife in that incident to an object in present time, and compare it to other objects as well, and follow the systematic method for doing this at level 2, once you could continue the exercise comfortably and without the upset that accompanied the event, you will find that not only have you relieved some of your past trauma, but also that the presence of knives in your environment no longer makes you feel uneasy. This is just an example for the sake of instruction. Please do not try doing such an exercise until you've studied the materials for levels 1 and 2 of TROM, and done the prerequisite exercises first. Dennis Stevens found this exercise of comparing people and objects from the past to some objects in the present an effective way to rid one's mind of a considerable amount of these mental masses. But that posed a problem. Anyone who has a mind, that is to say, any human, has so many of these mental masses that he's not only gotten used to it, but actually believes he needs them. And because of that, when he performs the time-breaking exercises in TROM and rids himself of these mental masses, he feels imbalanced. Therefore, after losing some mental mass, he will attract to himself more harmful mental masses to fill that void, resulting in an unpleasant state of affairs. Dennis solved this problem with the exercise called repair of importances. And that's really just a fancy term for the exercise of creating things around one, like I described earlier in this video. But to be clearer on what this means, you considered something from the past to be important. Through TROM exercises, you rid your mind of that importance. Therefore, you are lacking these importances or mental masses you are used to having around yourself. So you repair this condition by creating things around you, which are essentially non-harmful mental masses. Thus the term repair of importances. I guess he could have just as easily called the exercise replacement of importances, also known as RI. You replace lost mental masses with masses of your own, and that's all there is to it. This exercise also has the benefit of orienting you to your present environment. After all, if you are going to handle your past by viewing the past and the present at the same time, you need to be thoroughly grounded in the present in order to do so. This exercise, the repair of importances exercise, is repeated all the way through the entire TROM program, right until the end of level 5. You do it at the beginning of a session, the end of a session, and in between TROM exercises. Because you do this exercise throughout the entire TROM program, it's of utmost importance to make sure that you can get results from doing it. Some people can't, though it will be very few. 5% or less. Those people will have to follow the instructions covered in another video on this channel, on our Special Cases playlist. But even before then, there is an alternate way to do this exercise, and that is by getting into contact with the physical universe objects around one. That's the general idea of how and why all this is done. Let's get more into the specifics. I will now quote directly from the book, The Resolution of the Mind, a Games Manual by Dennis Stevens, the commands for this exercise. 1. Bring something into existence. 2. Have another bring something into existence. The first command is run over and over until there is no more change. Then the second command is likewise run. Then the first command and then the second command again, until both produce no more change. The creations should be placed around you 360 degrees spherical. You don't have to do anything with the creations. The act of creation is sufficient. Quality of creation is far secondary to quantity of creation. Abundance is of the essence. Dennis does not specify an exact procedure for placing things around one, but an effective way of doing this I and other TROMers have found is to do the following. Bring something into existence in front of you. Bring something into existence behind you. Bring something into existence to the left of you. Bring something into existence to the right of you. Bring something into existence above you. Bring something into existence below you. Then do the same upper left of you, upper right, lower right, then upper left behind you, upper right behind you, lower left behind you, and finally lower right behind you. You then start the cycle again, bringing something into existence in front of you. The two other command variations, which follow shortly, can be done in the same way. 1. Create something. 2. Have another create something. The word create is for many an emotionally charged word, and these people will find the preceding commands easier. They mean the same thing. The other alternative commands are 1. Create an importance. 2. Have another create an importance. Many will prefer this set and should use it. Try each one of these command sets and see which you like best and use it for future RI sessions. It is not necessary to perceive one's creations. The certainty that one has created is sufficient. There is another class of RI called RI by perception. This is where the being repairs his scarcity of importances by increasing his contact with, and reality of, an existing importance in the present time physical universe. He can repair his scarcity of importance by physically contacting such a solid present time physical universe object. Grasping such an object with your hands and feeling its solidity, temperature, texture, and so on will repair importance. Many who have difficulty with the creative RI commands will be able to use RI by perception. Any being who can use the creative RI exercises will also be able to use RI by perception, but should use the creative version by preference. Any being who can only use RI by perception early on should from time to time during the levels have another go at the creative versions. Sooner or later, one will click, and thereafter should be used in preference to the RI by perception method. The only difference between the two methods is that in the creative version the being is actually generating the importance. During the course of RI you are going to feel some discomfort. Do not be alarmed if things like your eye starts to water, you feel some uneasiness in your stomach, or get a tired feeling or numerous other possible sensations. You may experience emotional changes as well. This means the exercise is working. The wrong thing to do is to stop the exercise when that happens. You must continue the exercise until all such feelings and sensations subside and you can comfortably perform the exercise. The action of shifting your attention out of your past and onto the present, as well as replacing mental mass you've lost during one of the later TROM exercises, is not always a pleasant one, but it's necessary in order to restore your mental balance and orient yourself to your surroundings. Now let's suppose I am trying TROM for the first time. I choose create something. I decide since I like cats, I create a cat in front of me, one behind me, above me, and so on. I go through this series several times. I start to yawn a bit. I continue and I yawn more. I then continue until the yawning goes away, and when I am comfortable again, I switch to the second command, have another create something. Now you can handle this any way you want, just as long as you have the concept that someone else is creating whatever it is you are putting in front of you, behind you, and so on. You can just put an object, mentally, in front of you with the idea someone else put it there, but many times I like to actually visualize someone putting it there. For instance, I put a girl in front of me blowing bubbles. The bubbles are created by her. I put her all around me, and during this maybe my leg begins to shake. I continue until it stops shaking, and any other sensations, emotions, or reactions to the exercise subside, and I am comfortable once more. I switch back to the first command. I yawn a few times, it goes away, then I am fine. I go to the second command. After several cycles of placing things around me, nothing happens, so I go back to the first command, and nothing happens during that either. Since I have gone 2 in a row with no changes, I am finished with RI. Since I got results doing RI, namely the yawning and the leg shaking surfacing and subsiding, I know the process works for me, and the next day I start on level 2 of TROM. Now, if nothing happened, I could try a different command like bring something into existence. If I try all 3 command variations and nothing happens, I try perceptual RI. I grab hold of, for example, a cup on my desk and hold it for a while. I note how it looks, I feel its temperature, and so on. I may do this for a while. If I get a reaction, I continue holding it until it goes away. I can do this with other objects until I am comfortable doing the exercise and there are no more reactions. But, if I try placing my hands on things and long periods of time pass and nothing happens, then I can conclude after having tried all the RI exercises that I am going to need help from a separate therapist before engaging in TROM therapy on my own. Before doing this exercise, make sure you have had sufficient rest, you are not hungry or in pain, and that you are not under the influence of alcohol or medications. And make sure you have a place and time set aside where you can do this alone and undisturbed. The commands for these exercises are in the video description for your convenience. You can also find them in the book TROM 2023, which you can download for free. I recommend printing them and having them handy. And that's all you need to know in order to start your first TROM exercise. Thank you for watching.